New at 11, Greensboro police say a man is in jail after allegedly kidnapping and killing a woman. Officers responded to an assault call at a home on Mayfair Avenue just after midnight. When they got there, they found 40-year-old Katrina Viers unresponsive with trauma to her head. She was taken to the hospital where she later died.
Mom, I'm really afraid I'm going to die here. If I don't see you again, know that I love you. That's the text message Katrina Veers sent to her mother. Days later, she was dead. And here's the part that's gonna make you mad: the man police say killed her. He was already facing charges for strangling her just weeks before. Posted bond, walked free. And Katrina? She knew exactly what was coming. Let me tell you something. This case is about what happens when the system lets a woman slip through the cracks. The fights that turned deadly, the red flags everyone missed, the unspoken words left unsaid until it was too late. The shadow behind the curtains unveiled as we shine the light on shadowed stories that need to be told. This is Shadowed Crimes TV. Join us daily as we break down domestic violence cases. Hit the subscribe button and be part of the conversation that breaks the silence. Katrina Veers was 40 years old, a mother. And if you ask her mama, Karen Viers, she'll tell you Katrina was the type of person you couldn't ignore even if you tried. Bold, loud, loving, generous to a fault. Karen says, "My daughter, they named the hurricane after her for a reason. She was a terror, and there was not a mean bone in that girl's body." That's the thing about Katrina, she lived out loud. She helped people. She loved hard. But somewhere along the way, she ended up in a relationship with a man named Brian Bigelow. We don't know all the details about how they met or how long they'd been together. What we do know is that by the summer of 2024, things between them had turned dangerous. August 22nd. That's when Greensboro police first got involved. Brian Bigelow was charged with felony strangulation and domestic violence. The victim? Katrina Viers. The court documents paint a picture that's hard to read: bruises on Katrina's throat, welts across her body. This wasn't just an argument that got out of hand. This was strangulation. And if you don't know what that means in the world of domestic violence, let me break it down for you. When someone is charged with strangulation, that person is 750 times more likely to kill their victim. 750 times. Think about that number for a second. It's not just assault. It's not just battery. Strangulation is a predictor. It's a warning sign written in neon lights that says, "This could end in death." But here's where the system starts to crack. 4 days after Brian Bigelow was charged with strangling Katrina, August 26th, he posted a $10,000 bond. He walked out, free to go, free to move around, free to contact Katrina again if he wanted to. Now, I'm not saying the courts should have kept him locked up forever without a trial, but when you've got a strangulation charge, when you've got documented injuries, when the statistics are screaming at you that this man is 750 times more likely to kill this woman, maybe, just maybe, $10,000 shouldn't be enough to walk. And it gets worse. Bigelow didn't even show up for court. He was supposed to appear for those charges, and he just didn't. No show. Which means the system knew he was dangerous, knew he'd already hurt Katrina, and knew he wasn't taking the charges seriously. But still, he was out there, walking around, living his life. Meanwhile, Katrina? She was terrified. That text message she sent her mother, "Mom, I'm really afraid I'm going to die here." That wasn't dramatic. That wasn't an exaggeration. That was a woman who understood exactly what kind of danger she was in. She'd felt his hands around her throat. She knew what he was capable of. And she was right to be afraid. Days passed, then weeks. And somehow, Katrina ended up at Brian Bigelow's home on Mayfair Avenue in East Greensboro. We still don't know exactly why she was there or how she ended up back in his orbit. Her mother, Karen, says she's not even sure how Katrina knew Bigelow that well or what pulled her back to him. But on a Monday night, just after midnight, everything Katrina feared came true. Just after midnight, Greensboro Police, Fire Department, and EMS got a call. Something was wrong at the home on Mayfair Avenue. When first responders arrived, they found Katrina Viers unresponsive. Severe trauma to her face. Severe trauma to her head. The kind of injuries that tell you this wasn't quick. This wasn't an accident. This was violent. Paramedics rushed her to the hospital, but Katrina's injuries were too much. She didn't make it. 40 years old, a mother, gone. Now, here's what makes this even more disturbing. When police interviewed Brian Bigelow, he didn't deny what happened. He admitted it. Said he and Katrina got into a fight. Said he hit her with his hands. Said he kicked her. And then, and this is the part that's gonna sit heavy with you, he said, he used wooden boards. Wooden boards. Let that sink in for a second. This man beat Katrina Veers with his hands, his feet, and pieces of wood until she stopped moving. Girl, I don't even have words for that level of violence. This wasn't a moment of rage. This wasn't a single blow. This was sustained. This was brutal. This was a man who had already strangled her once, who'd already left bruises on her throat, who'd already shown the world he was capable of killing her, and he did it anyway. The neighbor who lived down the street? He told reporters he heard noise that night, but he didn't think much of it. Thought maybe somebody was yelling at a dog or something, he said.
Look out and I see down the street, I see all these ambulance and police cars, and I'm thinking, oh, maybe somebody might have OD'd or got hurt or fell out or something, but come to find out that wasn't the case. But I mean, when I found out what actually happened, I was shocked.
Greensboro Police, Fire, and EMS responded to the home on Mayfair Avenue just after midnight on Monday and found 40-year-old Katrina Viers with injuries to her face and head. She later died at a hospital.
And I'm sorry that it happened to the family. They have my condolences, because no one should have to go out like that,
When he found out what actually happened, he was shocked. And honestly, that's the reality of domestic violence. It happens right next door, right down the street. And most of the time, nobody knows until it's too late. By the time the sun came up on Monday morning, Katrina Viers was dead, and Brian Bigelow was in custody. The investigation moved fast because Bigelow had already confessed. There wasn't much mystery about who did it or how it happened. The question wasn't who done it. The question was why the system let it get this far in the first place. But before we even get into that, let's talk about the phone call. The one that Karen Viers will probably never forget. She was going about her day when someone called her, and they said, "I'm sorry, I've got some bad news for you. Katrina is dead. She was found dead this morning. She was murdered. Just like that. Your daughter, the one who texted you days ago saying she was afraid she was going to die, is gone." Karen told reporters, the news hit her like a hurricane, shattering everything in its path. And honestly, how else do you describe that kind of devastation? 1 minute, your daughter is alive, texting you, telling you she loves you. The next minute, she's gone, beaten to death. And there's nothing you can do to bring her back.
Tonight, a North Carolina mother is grieving the loss of her daughter. 40-year-old Katrina Viers was killed inside an East Greensboro home early Monday morning. Police have charged Brian Bigelow with kidnapping and first-degree murder. WFMY News 2's Amber Lake heard from Viers' mother, who says that her daughter was living her life helping others.
It's a loss no parent should ever have to experience.
She sent me a text saying, "Mom, I'm really afraid I'm going to die here." She says, "And if I don't see you again, know that I love you."
Days after Karen Viers got this text from her daughter, she learned the devastating news that her daughter was murdered. The news hit her like a hurricane, shattering everything in its path.
And he says, I'm sorry. I've got some bad news for you. He says, Katrina is dead. She was found dead this morning, and she was murdered.
Karen Viers says her daughter was a mother. She was bold, loud, loving, and fiercely generous.
My daughter. They named the hurricane after her for a reason. She was a terror. And there was a mean bone in that girl's body.
Greensboro police found Katrina Viers early Monday morning unresponsive with severe head trauma inside of a home on Mayfair Avenue. She was rushed to the hospital but didn't survive.
I don't want to believe it.
Karen Viers says she's still not sure how her daughter knew Brian Bigelow, the suspect in this case, or why she was at his home. Now, with no answers and no autopsy just yet, her mom says she's just trying to hold her family together.
I don't want to believe it, she told the news. And who could blame her? No parent should have to bury their child, especially not like this. Not when the warning signs were everywhere. Not when Katrina had literally told her she was afraid she was going to die. The autopsy hadn't even been completed yet when Karen spoke to reporters. She didn't have answers about exactly what happened or why Katrina was at Bigelow's home that night. All she had was grief. All she had was the memory of her daughter, the bold, loud, loving woman who helped everyone around her. The woman they named a hurricane after because she was a force of nature. Moving on to what the authorities found. The injuries were extensive. Head trauma, facial trauma. The kind of damage that comes from repeated blows. Forensics didn't need to do much detective work here because Bigelow had already laid it all out. He told them what he did. He told them how he did it. There were no setbacks in the investigation. No dead ends. Just the cold, hard truth that Katrina Veers had been murdered by a man who was already facing charges for hurting her. Let me tell you something. Domestic violence advocates in Greensboro were paying attention to this case. One advocate from the Family Justice Center talked about how they do deep dives into violent offenders' backgrounds. And when it comes to strangulation, the numbers don't lie. She said,
one of the things that we often do at the Family Justice Center in conjunction with our partners is do a deep dive into some of these violent offenders' backgrounds. And so in talking about strangulation, what we know is that when someone is charged with strangulation, we know that that person is 750 times more likely to kill their victim.
750 times. And Brian Bigelow had already been charged with strangling Katrina. He was already in the system. He was already on their radar. And still, Katrina ended up dead. The advocate went on to say that victims need strong support systems, that the justice system needs to be in constant contact to protect victims at every turn. She said,
it's important for all of us to come together in the community, whether you're law enforcement, you work for the district attorney's office, you are a social worker, an advocate, a counselor. We all want to send the same message of ensuring that our victims are safe and that offenders are held accountable for the crimes that they commit.
But hey, where was that accountability when Brian Bigelow posted bond? Where was that protection when he didn't show up for court and nobody went looking for him? Where was that system when Katrina texted her mother saying she was afraid she was going to die? Those are the questions that don't have good answers. Brian Bigelow was arrested and charged with first-degree murder and kidnapping. When he appeared in court for the first time, he sat there silent, didn't say a word, just listened as the judge laid out exactly what he was facing. The judge said,
charged with one count of first-degree murder. That is an offense that carries a potential maximum sentence of the death penalty or life without parole. You are also charged with one count of kidnapping. That is an offense that carries a potential maximum sentence of 19 years in prison.
The Guilford County District Attorney didn't hold back. She told the court about Bigelow's history, the August strangulation charge, the fact that he didn't show up for court, the fact that he'd already proven he was dangerous. And then she told the court what Bigelow admitted to doing: fighting with Katrina, hitting her with his hands, kicking her, using wooden boards. The DA argued that Bigelow was not only a danger to the community, but that he'd already shown he had no respect for the court system. She requested that he be held without bond. The judge agreed. No bond. Brian Bigelow wasn't walking out this time. So what do we take from this? What's the lesson here? Because if we're being honest, Katrina Veers is dead, and all the court hearings in the world won't bring her back. Her mother is left picking up the pieces, trying to hold her family together, trying to understand how her daughter ended up in that house on Mayfair Avenue. Katrina Viers told reporters, "I don't want to believe it." And that right there is the devastation of domestic violence. It doesn't just take a life, it shatters families. It leaves mothers without daughters. It leaves children without mothers. But let's talk about what really happened here. Because this wasn't just a tragic situation that nobody could have seen coming. This was preventable. Katrina Viers told people she was afraid. She had bruises on her throat. She had welts on her body. Brian Bigelow was charged with felony strangulation, a charge that statistically means he was 750 times more likely to kill her. And what happened? He posted a $10,000 bond and walked out. He didn't show up for court, and the system didn't go looking for him. And Katrina? She ended up dead. Make it make sense. How does a man with a strangulation charge, with documented violence, with a victim who's terrified, just walk free? How does he miss court and still get to go about his business? The advocates said it themselves, the system needs to work together. Law enforcement, district attorneys, social workers, counselors, advocates, everybody needs to be on the same page. Everybody needs to be protecting victims and holding offenders accountable. But when a man can strangle a woman, post bond, skip court, and still have access to that same woman weeks later, the system failed. Period. Domestic violence doesn't happen in a vacuum. It escalates. It builds. And there are warning signs along the way. Strangulation is one of the loudest warning signs you can get. It's not just assault. It's attempted murder. It's a man putting his hands around a woman's throat and cutting off her air supply. It's power, it's control, it's life and death. And when the courts see that charge and decide that $10,000 is enough to let someone walk, they're gambling with a woman's life. Katrina Viers lost that gamble. Her mother lost her daughter. Her children lost their mother. And a community in Greensboro is left asking the same questions we're asking right now. How did this happen? How did the system let her down? And how many more women are out there right now, texting their mothers, saying they're afraid they're going to die, while the men who hurt them are out on bond? The neighbor down the street said he didn't know what was happening behind those closed doors. And that's real. Most people don't. Domestic violence is quiet until it's not. It's private until it's deadly. But the courts knew, the police knew, the system knew Brian Bigelow was dangerous, and they let him go anyway. So if you take anything from Katrina's story, let it be this. Believe women when they say they're afraid. Take strangulation charges seriously. Hold offenders accountable before it's too late, because Katrina Viers knew she was going to die. She told her mother. She told the courts through those charges, and nobody stopped it. Katrina Viers said her daughter was bold, loud, loving, and generous. She said Katrina helped people. She said there wasn't a mean bone in her body, and now she's gone. Beaten to death by a man who should have been behind bars. A man who the system gave a second chance. A man who used that chance to take Katrina's life. That's the legacy of this case. Not just the murder, not just the violence, but the system failure that made it possible. The bond that was too low. The court date that was missed without consequences. The 750 times more likely statistic that got ignored. All of it adds up to one thing. Katrina Veers should still be alive. Rest in peace, Katrina. Your mama loved you. Your family loved you. And your story matters. Not just as another statistic, not just as another domestic violence case, but as a reminder that when women say they're afraid, we need to listen. When the warning signs are flashing red, we need to act. And when the system has a chance to protect someone, it needs to do its job. Because the next text message from a scared woman to her mother, that could be the last one. And we've already seen how this story ends. Anyways, that's the story of Katrina Viers, 40 years old, a mother, a daughter, a woman who knew she was in danger and couldn't escape it. A woman the system failed, gone too soon, taken too violently, and leaving behind questions that need answers. If you or someone you know is experiencing domestic violence, please reach out to the National Domestic Violence Hotline or your local Family Justice Center. Help is available. You don't have to suffer in silence, and you don't have to become another statistic. If this story hit you the way it hit me, go ahead and hit that like button. Subscribe to Shadowed Crimes TV if you haven't already, because we're not just telling stories here, we're shining light on the cases that need to be heard. Drop a comment below. Let me know your thoughts. And if you know someone who needs to hear Katrina's story, share this video. We'll be back with another case soon. Until then, stay safe out there. Peace.